Welcome, everyone, to the Eugene City Council work session for February 22nd, 2010. Welcome to everyone here and everyone at home. This work session today is a continuation of the Council's February 10th work session on the City Manager's recommendations for downtown projects and funding options. And just to sort of roll through this a little bit and then turn it over to City Manager, the actions that we took last time, there were three pieces of all the pieces that were presented to us, and these were all adopted. One was using $100,000 of one-time existing urban renewal dollars to purchase and install additional lighting downtown, and $100,000 of one-time dollars, one half from telecom and one half from existing urban renewal, to purchase automated behavior crime reporting software and cameras, but only after the council approves the city manager's plan for number, location, use, and ongoing cost of the cameras, after considering the camera's expected effectiveness in deterring crime. So that one is kind of we'll keep discussing it, but we're not quite there yet kind of thing, I think. B is pursue use of Springfield jail beds to include the exchange for Springfield's use of Eugene Fire Training Center, an exchange concept. C is include in the city manager's proposed FY11 budget $500,000 of the city's Human Services Commission contribution for partial funding of the Downtown Safety Initiative, including additional services like Cahoots. And we went to great length at the last meeting to point out that that didn't reduce the amount of our commitment to the Human Services Commission, but added to it.
In FY11, it's not.
So that's where what we accomplished at our last meeting, and then we're going to move forward to move down the list to consider the other remaining items. Before I do that, I want to ask the city manager if he wants to make any comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real briefly, what we passed out to each of you is we suggest a friendly amendment. What we've tried to do is just add clarity to a couple of these motions. There's nothing new in them content-wise. We talked about them before, but based on the conversation that we had last time, we thought it might add a little clarity. For example, there was discussion about actually having a motion to limit the new annual expenditures. We talked about those. There was some discussion about adding on the motion 2 about the $8 million for LCC can also facilitate public plaza, open space, downtown public safety substation. That's actually part of the project descriptions we've been talking about. So these just kind of try to add clarity, and we would recommend, if the council's comfortable, add them as a friendly, and then we just start moving through the motions.
Okay. Yes. So I guess, if I'm understanding what you're suggesting, City Manager, is that before we start going any further, that you all consider adding this to the underlined items here to the motions.
Right.
Anyone want to do that?
I move to accept that as a friendly.
I'll accept that.
Okay. And who was the second?
Ben.
I don't want to do it all at once. I haven't tried it.
No,
isn't doing them.
It's just added in D.
You'll still be doing them one
Please
at a
do
time.
one at a time.
Okay. George had his hand up. Did you see it?
No, it's all right.
It's all right?
Clarity.
I mean,
That just added
I
these
thought we were gonna
friendlies to
start
all of them.
discussing
But they're still separated. It just adds it.
We are.
But she did agree, and we're adding the
Yes,
friendlies
yes,
in.
yes,
Okay.
yes. So I think we're ready to go. All right, I'm going to read the first motion that's already on the table, and it goes like this for the audience. I move to present to the Urban Renewal Agency Board for its review a proposed amendment to the Downtown Urban Renewal Plan that would, 1, restrict the use of tax increment funds and increase the spending limit to pay for, I, the Broadway Place garage as debt, thereby freeing up funds for additional police officers for downtown public safety and property crime reduction, and 2, not more than 3 other projects if their inclusion is approved by later motions, and terminate the Downtown Urban Renewal District as soon as the projects are paid for or sufficient funds are collected to fund these projects, In addition, present to the council at the same time that the city manager brings forward a draft amendment to the urban renewal plan, an analysis of both a local option levy and a general obligation bond instead of tax increment financing to fund the specified projects. And that's what you have under discussion right now. So, George.
Thank you, Mayor. On February 10th, something happened that I thought was very unusual. 5 councilors wanted to cut off discussion. They voted to not talk about it anymore and call the motion and vote on everything without any more discussion. And I thought that was kind of strange because it seems like a pretty poor way to analyze a very, very complicated problem by not discussing it. So it just puzzled me, and I'm just curious, maybe some of you might want to explain why you didn't want to talk about this in any more detail. Moving on, I don't even think we should attempt to amend the plan because we're up against some serious deadlines now. On January 4th, the city attorney sent us a the city attorney sent us a memo that said, unless the council adopts an ordinance amending the urban renewal plan before the end of this fiscal year, June 30th, 2010, tax increment financing for the downtown district will cease. And he could have added, that's from the ORS 457 that governs urban renewal. He could have added, any remaining funds in the downtown urban renewal district will be returned to the jurisdictions. So we're already past the deadlines. This date will pass, and we won't have an amendment. So I'm just wondering why we would want to have staff and all of us spend a lot of time on something that's not going to happen. And here's how it works. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong. It takes about 100 days. It's a 100-day process to craft an urban renewal plan amendment. Before it comes to us, then we vote on it. The majority would approve it. I'll vote against it. The majority would approve it. Well, that's June 2nd. The last election is May 18th. We passed the election date. It will be referred to ballot. That's also part of ORS 457. It is referable to ballot. My guess is that a majority of council would choose not to refer it to ballot, would choose to be not democratic and not let people vote, forcing the voters to collect several thousand signatures, have 30 days to do so. I feel very confident that is very doable. And then it's 60 more days to the election. Now we're talking September 2nd. That's 190 days. But we basically don't have... Okay, next round, please.
Anybody else in the queue?
I just want to, I really am thankful that you guys came back with this broken down motion outline. I think it makes more sense for people who, to have it digested easily, or for the community to understand what we're trying to do, what direction we're going, to be responsive of the concerns of some of my peers here at the table. And, you know, George, in Robert's rules, people can call the question. And if they feel like at the time that it's for the best of whatever their idea is, whoever calls the question, that's their choice. And that's just part of the process that we use. And I felt like one of our participants had to leave, and so out of respect to him, I try and be respectful when people make requests at times to acknowledge that we have other commitments besides this. You know, you have a business, I have a day job, a lot of us have jobs. And so I was told that's why I was in support of the ending the conversation.
Okay.
Okay, I have Mike in the queue this round. Mike?
I have mentioned on many, many occasions my challenges with the idea of tax increment financing as a method of financing city business. Ours specifically, under how it's been used over time, I'm not sure it's been used the way I would have thought it best. But I'm happy to vote in favor of this motion just today, because what I understand this motion to do is that it comes back to us with all three options. It comes back to us with a plan that says, here's what it looks like if you use tax increment financing, here's what it looks like if you do it with a bond, and here's what it looks like if you do it with a levy. And then you can decide, what do you think is the smartest way to do this work? And I think it's certainly important for all of us to be at the table and decide how we're going to proceed with this work of bringing our downtown to a better state. So I'm happy to support this motion because it brings us all the options and all the information to make a reasonable decision.
Betty?
Okay, I won't be supporting it, but I think that it's too bad that George couldn't finish his statement. It's a flaw in the way we conduct these meetings, that we have to stop and then you have to finish later, but I'm sure we can do it. But at this point, what I want to say is, I'm amazed at how many people don't realize that LCC is already downtown. They think we should, and also the people who think that if we're opposed to urban renewal, we're opposed to LCC, and I don't think anyone here is opposed to LCC. I think that we can find ways to help them with the new building, but there seems to be a lot of misinformation or misunderstanding of information, and I'll say more later.
I'll just put my voice in this round and say, of literally dozens and dozens of people I've talked to, they all pretty much know that we have an outdated facility, LCC facility downtown that only does a small bit of their business, and that they have something innovative, creative, and a great opportunity for our community. And building an energy center downtown, which is a totally different thing and something that moves us in the direction that we want to go. And for me, I'm happy to talk about all these options. I just want to keep our eye on the ball, and that is that to get this energy center downtown and the 400 jobs of putting it in place, the 45 long-term jobs that it would provide, and all that education for students about green jobs that we need for the future. That's what my eyes are on. What are we trying to do with this? We'll try to pick out the best tool that we have available to us, or tools that we have available to us, and it's a pretty small kit to try to help make this happen. One of the things this weekend, we going to head to Washington, D.C. to talk about things that our united front. We talked with Congress about what we're trying to achieve, and I think part of that needs to be being supportive of some of the other funding options that LCC is looking for. The job is just for us to use everything that we have to get this done, and so that we can fill that pit and move forward as a community. George, you're up for your second round.
I want a second round.
Mayor?
I think
Yes.
Alan was.
Oh, Alan, okay.
First round.
Okay.
So this motion 1D, the one that the mayor read, is not a decision. It is as I see it, is a request for information, that the city manager bring back information about how to fund these projects, in particular this paying for the garages to pay for additional police officers for downtown and property crime reduction, and then 3 other projects, LCC, Farmers Market, and the VA. And it also, so it includes a comparison of the urban renewal tax increment financing compared to a levy compared to a GO bond. And once we have that information, I'm very eager to see that information, and I thank everybody for putting this into a friendly amendment to this motion, because this is what I requested earlier. Once we have that information, then we would decide how we would move forward. So until we get that information, the plan's starting to take shape, but the funding mechanism is not. And this is about the funding mechanism. So the next step after this one, when we get this information back, would be to decide which one of those 3 options makes the most sense, both politically and economically, for the city of Eugene. So I'm real anxious to pass this motion and get that information, because I think it'll be a clear it'll show the trade-offs that we have between the different types of mechanisms, the pluses, the pros and the cons, and the costs. And it'll be a very good conversation once we're fully armed. Till then, I don't think we're fully armed to have a conversation.
Anybody else in the first round? Okay, so George, second round.
What we're all ignoring here is these timelines. If we, it's a 100-day amendment, urban renewal amendment ordinance process. Is that correct? Correct? Someone from the city staff or manager can correct me if I'm wrong. This is information that you guys provided us with last July and in August, and it's a 100-day process.
If it's appropriate, we'd sure be happy to go through the timeline. I think my understanding is we'll be just fine hitting the correct timelines, but we can sure talk about that now, or we can...
Let's talk about it now. It's real important to talk about it now.
So
I mean, this is where it's at.
So we've mapped out, as John said, a tentative timeline to amend the downtown urban renewal plan. And if on March 8th we have a work session to consider all of the items that are in the motion, and if the council at that time decides to initiate, the following dates would fall into place from there. March 12th, we would be notifying the taxing districts by mail that the amendments are proposed and let them know the hearing date for those, and they would receive a copy of the plan, the proposed plan at that time, and be invited to comment. And then we would also mail out a postcard to the general public with the hearing dates, and we would put all of the materials on our website. On March 29th, the Planning Commission would be able to review and comment on the proposal. On April 1st,
Who would?
the Planning Commission. We can send this out to you via email. We'll follow up with that. On April 1st, the Eugene Redevelopment Advisory Committee would consider this. On April 19th, the City Council could hold the public hearing on the ordinance amending the plan. On April 21st, there's a tentative work session to review all the comments from the taxing bodies and any recommendations that come in from the county or other jurisdictions, and also the Planning Commission recommendation. On April 27th, we would give you some refined plan amendments with a recommendation, including financial analysis, considering all the comments that we received, and prepare the final plan. We have tentatively scheduled for May 10th. The council could adopt the ordinance to amend the plan. And then the referendum signature process would then need to be completed by June 9th. And the general deadline for the November 2nd ballot is July 15th, so we put it on the November ballot.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of you have sped it up by a month or so. That's fine. But then we lose the money that's in the fund on July 1st because it's the start of a new fiscal year. Is that correct?
No, if the council passes something before the end of this fiscal year, then until we discovered whether it got referred, and if it got referred, whether it was approved or rejected by the voters, the city would, or the Urban Renewal Agency would keep those funds. Once we knew whether it got referred, and if referred, whether the voters approved or rejected it, at that point, then the money would be, assuming that the voters turned it down, then the money would be returned.
It doesn't say that in RS 457. That's a very debatable what you just said. I'm not sure that's correct. I don't think it is correct. I think that whatever's left is going to go back to the jurisdictions. It's clear also that the district will stop collecting TIFs. Is that correct? Is that true? This is from your memo of January 10th.
Right, but what my memo said is if the council did not approve an urban renewal plan amendment before the end of the fiscal year, then certain things would fall into place. If the council approves it, but we don't know what the voters are going to do with it, it's the council's approval that's critical, not...
Right.
At some point, if it's referred and the voters disapprove the amendment, then yes, we stop collecting the tax increment funds and it's all returned. But the critical piece for me in that memo was, did the council act before June 30th or not?
Well, I interpret ORS 457 differently than that, but I suppose that's okay. My point is, why would we want to go down this road? We won't know what's going to happen until next September. If we don't take this fork in the road, if we let it go, like everybody says they want to do, everyone says, hey, this will just be the last time. We're not going to use it anymore. Let's let it go now. Let's just let it go now. It's going to be a really good thing. Here's what would happen if we let it go now. We get to keep the $8 million that's in there. We could use that to help out LCC. Those TIF funds that are built up. There's $6 million in the facility reserve. That could help LCC. If the general fund gets $800,000 a year, which it will if we just let the downtown urban renewal district go, we could hire 4 new police officers. We could rent 5 new jail beds. We'd have $200,000 for homelessness and hunger. Oregon's record of shame is we're in the top 3 in the whole country in hunger. Childhood hunger, especially Lane County, is one of the worst places in the whole country. And homelessness. We'd have $200,000 a year to, or we could refigure that $800,000 any way we want to. But we could definitely have 4 police officers, and we could have 5 new jail beds, and we have $2,000. We also save $892,000 in administrative expense. There won't be in a district to administer. That's a tremendous savings to the city. It would be a good thing to let it go, rather than get involved in a long, drawn-out electoral battle. Thank you. I'll want another round, too.
Before I call on the next person, I just want to ask a question. Beth, if the speaker sits where it's sitting right here, can we be heard? I think we're going in and out by getting close and far. So
Yeah, there's a couple that are worse than others. Unfortunately, George has that one tonight. So if you just stay back.
stay back from your mic a little bit.
It is actually being picked up.
Okay. All right. Okay, next is Betty, and then I've got Andrea, and then I've got Alan, and then nobody else is in. Did you have no? Okay. All right, Betty.
Okay. Well, I'm very much in favor of helping LCC build on that spot. But I want to know where all the money is. That's with existing money. The money that's now in the Urban Renewal Fund, if we need it, it's part of the facility reserves. First, we need to know how much they need, but I would vote for saying we will help them without extending the urban renewal, without expanding the debt limit or extending the time or any of those things. But there is money available, and I don't think we know exactly how much yet. The money that we will save from administration, the money that's currently there, and I still haven't seen those figures of exactly what's available. But however we have to put it together, I'm in favor of helping them locate in the pit. Thank you.
Andrea?
Thank you, Mayor. I feel like I'm just responding to George tonight, but I just wanted to say that thank you for mentioning, Mayor, that you guys are going to go on the United Front, because I would love it if you guys would come back and say that the feds gave LCC $8 more million and that we didn't need to help them. But I still think that if this is what we have to use to help them with whatever amount they need, I'm willing to take that stretch. And as far as, and I don't disagree with what George is saying about that we could put more money towards things, but I just have to I always want to say this when I hear that we're at the top end of hunger and homelessness. I think we just do a better job of acknowledging what our societal problems are, because I think that this is a nationwide issue. We're not the only ones with this problem. I believe everybody has the same issues around hungry people and around people who are homeless. We just acknowledge it and we count it and we try and do something about it.
Alan?
I saw George's email requesting information about the existing funds that are in the Urban Renewal District, which in total was $11.1 million, but part of that was to pay the last bond payment for the library. Part of it is for Riverfront Research Park. Part of it is the loan funds that we use to help people rehab their buildings. And could you run that down for us and then end up with how much is really available in the Urban Renewal Fund to go towards projects?
Sure.
And what happens to the residual that's been over-collected?
Okay. What Sue reported in her email, first critical piece is to know that it was a snapshot in time. So as of, I think it was June 30th, 2009, what was in the sort of the combined urban renewal funds was a little over $11 million. That was both the Riverfront District and the Downtown District. Of that amount, about a little over $3 million was the Riverfront District. So that reduces it down to about $8 million. Of that amount, I think 2.1 million was the loan fund that Alan was talking about, Downtown Revitalization Loan Program, and so that left about 5.9 million of tax increment funds related to the downtown district. As of June 30th, the city urban renewal agency had not yet made the final debt payment for the library, so some of the 5.9 million by now has been paid for that final debt payment, and so that would have reduced it further. The money that's...
How much is that approximately?
I don't know. Amanda, do you know what the debt... We can get you that information before your next work session. So there would be tax increment funds left over after that. Right now you have approximately $500,000 under that spending limit. So even if you didn't make, if you made no changes to the plan, you don't get to keep of the tax increment funds that are still for downtown. You don't get to keep and spend it all. You can only spend that $500,000 that's still within your spending limit. The rest of it, if you don't amend the plan, would then go back to the county and it would be redistributed to the overlapping taxing districts. The city would get some of that, the county would get some of that. In theory, the school district gets some of that, but that becomes an offset against the money that the state otherwise would pay. So the school district winds up with a very small piece of the money that actually goes back. Did that answer all your questions, Alan?
So let me pare it back, see if I got it right. So $11 million, we take off about $5 million of it is the loan fund and the Riverfront Research Park.
Correct.
So that leaves about $6 million left. We paid off the last bond debt for the library, and then and that leaves a certain amount of money. But we have a spending limit in the urban renewal district of $33 million. We only have $500,000 gap between what we spent and what we can spend.
Right. There's some additional money that you haven't spent but earmarked. Like part of that $33 million is money that may have gone to a project that's partially paid for but not entirely paid for. So you have a $500,000.
But it's committed.
Right.
Right. So really, there's $500,000 before we hit the spending limit. The rest of the money that would be available in that would actually go back to the jurisdiction. Some of it will go to us, and will go to Lane County. Unfortunately, 4J would get an offset from the state and probably end up just barely whole, a little bit positive, $20,000 or something like that, because of the weird things about how the way it works with Measure 5 and Measure 47.
Right.
So school districts kind of don't get their fair share. And if they did under Measure 5 and 47, money sent, property taxes that are collected go to the state, and the legislature then decides what to do with that money. They can either give it back to schools or put it in the general fund to deal with a $183 million deficit that they have. And if they did send it back to schools, it would be equally distributed, and Eugene would get about our fair share of the state revenue, which would be about 3%.
Right.
So that's why, if people are wondering why it's not just a one-to-one 4J thing, it's much more complicated than that, and only a really small portion of it comes back to 4J, which is why they didn't object to it in the first place, because they understood that the money gets reallocated at the state level. So in the end, what we end up left with is this $500,000 that's available to spend right now, and some amount that's been over-collected, which then gets redistributed. Some of it will come back to us, but we don't know exactly what that number is because we haven't done that calculation, because it's complicated, and last time we did it was in June, and we'll do it again probably in June.
But as part of the new budget, we'll have
An update.
an update.
Oh, so
as
we'll see
part
that
of
in
the-
April.
Right, as we put through the budget. The other piece, I think, is on the administration side. I know we throw out the number 950,000, but if you take a look at that, 640,000 of that really was set up for BEAM and the WG project specifically. And so part of that BEAM project related, the vast majority of that was set up for the WG project, which, as we know, isn't going forward right now. So that's actually not true administrative expense. And of that 900+ thousand, it's just 200,000 actually relates to salaries and materials and supplies. So it's really a relatively small amount. The total budget is true sort of overhead kind of stuff. So that's
So
the other
assuming
clarification.
those services that we're currently doing carried forward, that would take another 200,000.
Another round, Alan?
Yeah,
Maybe.
Don't know. All right. I guess the only other comment that I want to make is I think in this conversation as we move forward, people are going to continue to want to sort of examine what they consider to be some resources that are available and whether they're really available or not available, and we'll just have to keep sort of clarifying that as we move this discussion forward. But I'd also say that one of the things you're going to have to be thinking about is what is it you're trying to do in this project, and what is it you're trying to do in other places? If it's important for us to have funds available for loans to help in other ways, then you have to try to sort of balance what those needs are and the best way to meet those needs within the fairly small amount of funds that we have available. So as you look at that, you have to look at it. If you're thinking of pulling it from here, what are you really pulling it from, and what is it really accomplishing or not accomplishing? And one of the things that I would bring forward here is that ultimately, I love the idea of the LCC project because of what it's going to teach our kids and because it's such a good, in keeping with their economic development and all the other things around that meet the needs of today. But I'd also say that part of what we're doing and continually trying to develop our downtown, in the case of LCC, it would be things around it, but it's the building up the tax base and providing jobs. That's what we're trying to do here, and that is what will ultimately, if you go to the Human Services Commission or you go to the United Way surveys or any of those things, what they will tell you that ultimately our homeless issues are going to be dealt with by people being able to be employed. And so we have to keep our eyes on all the balls at the same time. And part of what you're trying to do here is not only fill a hole in our downtown, but fill a hole in people's lives here. And so that's what what this is really about. And that's why it's so important that we try to accomplish this in a balanced and thoughtful way. So I've got George and then Betty. And anybody else in this round? Okay. Chris, you're up. You haven't had a turn. So go
Oh,
ahead.
thanks. I just wanted to ask a clarifying question with all the swirling around. In terms of what's available, increasing the limit for what's already there versus what's not there, let me ask it in a different way. If I'm a resident and I open my property tax bill next year, if we approve what's on the table right now, will my property tax bill go up? And if so, by how much?
Your property tax bill wouldn't go up from where it is today.
If we approve this?
If you approve this.
So the money that we were using
This
to...
is just an information request.
Well, I mean, if this followed through and went with the tax increment financing, that's what I'm really getting at. The tax increment financing option, would that increase my property tax and by how much?
I'd want to double check with Sue, but I think the answer is your property tax bill would not go up if the council amended the plan to do what's talked about here. Part of the information that if you approve this motion you will get back at your next meeting is that answer as well as how it compares to the other options.
Okay, because what I'm hearing is that there's basically money there. You're looking for the spending authority to use it for these purposes. So tax bills would not go up because the money's there, it just needs to be allocated out. If we went with one of the other options, a general obligation bond or a local option levy, those would be on my tax bill, theoretically.
Correct.
So using the money that's already in the tax increment financing fund, if you will, the urban renewal fund, creating an amendment to allow us to use that money for these purposes, and then getting rid of it, killing it after that, would not increase anybody's taxes. I'm speaking in generalities.
Correct.
The other two options both represent an increase in taxes.
Yes, the levy and the GO bond, yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thanks.
Okay. Nobody else in this room? Okay, then it's George and Betty in the third round. George.
Okay, thank you. Well, my point is, I tried to make in my last round, is we have plenty of money available right now to help LCC. We've got plenty of money. I can go over it again. We're going to get $2.4 million back. And I do have a request of the city attorney, but, the next meeting, I'm looking in here at ORS 457, 450. I don't see any phrase in there that says the jurisdiction will inform the tax collector to return unless the municipality has an election coming up in a few months. There's no out here. It says if the bonded debt is taken care of and the plan is unamended, everything goes back to the jurisdictions. Maybe I'm missing something. If I am, I'd like you to point it out to me. I could have made a mistake and not be reading this correctly. I admit that. I don't understand every single thing in here. I understand a lot of it now, but not every single thing. So if I'm missing something here, you could help me out with that. I don't know. I guess I could say it again. We've got that $2.4 million, $6 million in the facility reserve. LCC will eventually be able to sell their property when they do move. They're getting a free property that's worth $2.5 million. I assume that the city's just going to give them, we're going to give them that money, right?
The council has not made that decision yet. We'll be coming back with deal points eventually. So the council has not made that decision.
Well, of course not, but that's what I'm saying. That's quite a help to somebody that's trying to do a development. Are you kidding me? A free piece of property that's worth $2.5 million?
It's actually worth 1.6.
Well, we've done the demolition and we've scooped out the pit and everything, but there have been all these other improvements that...
I think that's the last appraisal we have with all of those pieces.
Okay, sure, with all the other amendments. No, so we've got a lot right now to offer LCC, and by the way, I think the LCC is going to be a great project. I'm all for it, especially with the housing component is key. But we don't even know what their requirements are. There's so many funding sources that they haven't tapped yet. And I'm willing to do everything for them that we possibly can, except extend the urban renewal tool anymore. It's time. It's been 42 years. It's lived a good life. It's time to let it go. We're going to have all this other money that we can do all these other good things with. It's going to be a really good thing to let it go, not a sad thing. We're going to hire new police officers, and we're going to get jail beds, and we're going to help homeless people and hungry people. We can do that right now if we just let it go. Thank you.
Betty?
I would like to know just how much we're getting back. When you say it goes back to the jurisdictions, I know we do get money back, and it seems that nobody knows for sure how much. At any rate, I know that I'm sure that there are ways we can put money together, taking, if we need to, taking part of it from the facility reserve. And I would like to see us move to say that we will help LCC when we find out what kind of help they need. As for property taxes not going up, if you look at your property tax bill, you will see two places on it that says, say, urban renewal, the city and the riverfront. That money comes, it is tax money. It's the people's money. And possibly, well, probably, you might avoid higher taxes from the county if they get the money back that they're currently losing. It's being diverted from them. We all know that the county needs money. That's related to public safety. And LCC would get part of the money, too. So it isn't as if as if urban renewal creates money. It doesn't. It moves it around. And I think that we may not do everything that is on this list, but we can certainly find a way to help do whatever LCC needs to help them build the building without extending the urban renewal district.
Yes, George?
I just want to say one more thing, Mayor. Thank you. You know, when Beam got in trouble and couldn't finish their project, we went to bat for them, and because we knew that was important. And we didn't complicate their problem. We didn't pull in all these other projects, however worthy they might be individually. We made it really pure and simple. We just helped Beam on that one property. And I think we ought to do the same thing here. I think we ought to pick the most important single thing and tackle some of these one at a time rather than lump them all in this big cauldron and start stirring it around. We're going to end up with a witch's brew. Some people will be pleased by some things, other people will be offended by other things and won't be able to support the whole thing. I think that's going to happen here. I think we're mixing too many things. I think we ought to pull LCC out, isolate it by itself, and do what we can, short of using urban renewal. Use what we have already, but short of new urban renewal, and let's make that happen. That and the Beam project, it's not going to solve all the downtown's problems, however wonderful both of them will be. We still have a long ways to go, but it'll be a tremendous step in the right direction, and it will make a big difference downtown. So I just think it's way too complicated, this big long list of things. We can't solve all the problems at once. I'd like to see us just take the most important thing and bring it to fruition and then work on the other ones. Thank you.
Ellen?
Well, I don't disagree with you, George. Almost all of this is LCC and the VA. It's almost all LCC. So I think we are kind of doing what you're suggesting. I'm real anxious to see this analysis come back because the comparison of the tax increment financing to a levy to a GO bond, and I think the things that we'll find out is how each of those work, where the money comes from, the implementation cost of each of those different options, the impact on property taxes and compression, what the pros and cons are of those three different options, issues around voting and referral and how that works, because I know if you do a GO bond or a levy, you have to go to a vote. If you do increment finance, you don't, but it can be referred. And then this last issue, amount of money that comes back if the urban renewal district terminates, and where does it go? I think is a good another piece of the analysis we have. So once we have all that information, then I think we're really armed to then say, okay, which one of these mechanisms makes the most sense, both economically and politically, to move forward to get the things done that the mayor was talking about in terms of making downtown, getting LCC downtown and the VA hospital downtown, and maybe fixing the farmers market and maybe getting a pocket park. Those things are things that are high on my agenda to see happen downtown, and I'm more interested in having them happen than have a bloodbath about or a battle over how we finance them. So, which is why I called for the initial analysis of the different options in the first place. So I'm eager to see that. So I'll be supporting this motion because what it does, it's not a decision, it's a request for information to be brought back so that we can make a fully informed decision later.
I think we're ready to vote on this motion. Would you please vote? All those in favor, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In opposition, 2. It passes. The next motion is, I move to bring back to council this spring a proposed ordinance requiring vacant properties to pay downtown service district fees. Any yes?
So this isn't actually saying we're going to make them pay more fees. This is just going to be to look at it?
Yes.
And to
Proposed
analyze
ordinance.
it? A proposed ordinance. And at that point, will the DEI have a chance to have their piece in that? Because I'd be interested to hear what their opinions are of it. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, George?
And when this comes back, I'd like to know if there's some way you can come back with a vacancy rate in that downtown area at the same time.
We can include that.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike?
I'd also be interested to know that the property owners that this would affect, the ones who own vacant property, what impact this decision would have on their future decision-making. I'd like you to ask them, if you would. Ask them to tell you, what are they likely to do next, and then report that back to us, too, if you would.
Okay. All those in favor, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in favor. In opposition, 1 in opposition. It passes. Next motion up, 1F. I move to work with Downtown Eugene Incorporated and the Chamber of Commerce on partnerships and other funding strategies with a goal of achieving $350,000 in revenue. Could you please explain that?
Yeah, this is an opportunity that we talked about to bring all the players to the table to try and close some of the gaps and make sure it was a public-private partnership to fund the downtown public safety piece.
An example of that might be is actually expanding the size of that downtown service district.
Okay.
So that'd be an example of that.
Okay. All right, further questions? Betty?
I just think it's too vague to vote on right now.
George?
Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't understand where the $350,000 is going to go. I don't understand the fees that would be raised for people that are already paying. I need to see more. I just think there's too many things that we have on the list, and I won't be able to support it.
This is all part of the $2.2 million for the Downtown Public Safety Initiative. Part of what we've talked about is could be expanding the district, or we bring more people into the district. May or may not mean adjusting fees. Part of what this is to say we believe that's a viable part of a total financing package. We want to sit down with the DEI and the Chamber on some of those. Some of those things would have to come back to this body if they're ordinances or resolutions or whatever, those kinds of things for your action beyond that. So it's this isn't the only bite at the apple that you would get at this, for example.
Okay, thank you. I understand that. I have a feeling that, if we have more policemen downtown, which I have a proposal that would give us 4 more, I see us gradually not having the guides anymore. That's kind of where I would like to go, personally. So I just don't think I can support this one.
I just want to point out that in his proposal, it talks about bringing people together to look at strategies with a goal of achieving that is sort of set a marker for what they would try to aim at. It doesn't mean that you have said you will actually, it just kind of sets the bar. So, yes.
So, explain this to me in a little bit more detail. So we would go to DEI and the Chamber and say, we've got this package of proposals to do these different things in public safety to the tune of about $2.2 million. We would like you to come up with some revenue, you guys figure it out, up to $350,000 to help us pay for that. So that would be $2.2 million minus whatever we get from these guys?
Yes, in broad terms. I don't think we would just turn it over. We would be a part of that discussion. But
in partnership.
Yeah, in partnership. Part of that is how best to use the guides versus other kinds of things. And so, they have various contracts and all. There may be ways to redirect some of those dollars here that are actually much more effective for the overall public safety downtown. We don't have all the answers yet. Part of this is we think this is a reasonable amount of dollars for sort of that consortium to bring to the table for the whole program. We want to sit down, talk through all of those, and come up with what we hope would be a good solution.
And if I could just add, we can trace this back to the Downtown Safety Task Team that really saw the partnership up in the Portland metro area working really well. And so this was really building on that to do all the things that John just said.
Okay. All those in favor, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In opposition, 2. It passes. The next one, G, I move to direct the city manager to limit new annual expenditures for the Downtown Safety Initiative to $2.2 million. This comes at Councilor Zelenka's request to put the lid on it.
What we did last time, there was some discussion around the table about costs and the total budget for it. And Councilor Zelenka, but others expressed an interest in having a motion that talks about here's the amount of money we're really talking about when we talk about the public safety.
Mayor. Yeah, this is, for me, a little bit vague, because the need that we have is massive. We have a good plan here to start walking down the road a little ways towards a solution. But by no means is it to the extent sufficient to what I believe the need is. So I certainly wouldn't want to limit us in some way to any future effort that we could make based on any new opportunity or new revenues or new solutions that came forward. I wouldn't want to tie our hands to make downtown safe without a real clear reason why it's smart.
And I can clarify just a little bit. The intent of this really has to do with the initiative we're proposing right now. Down the road, the council, of course, can do whatever they choose to do. This is strictly with, here's the initiative package that we're proposing or have proposed. That's our intent in that.
And it's written, Mike, so that it's limiting the city manager. If you read it, it doesn't limit the council in any way. If you decide you want to spend more money, nobody can say, wait a minute, we passed a motion that said the council wasn't going to spend more than $2.2 million.
So
this is tied just to the...
So this limits just what he's doing in this set of guidelines he's bringing back, but gives us the opportunity to do anything further at some future point to do an adequate job, finally, with public safety downtown. Thank you.
Alan?
Yeah, so the reason I asked for this is because nowhere in the set of motions was there a direction to the city manager about cost. It's certainly not unlimited, so because we have very, very real constraints about how much money we can spend anywhere, and especially since we have a $7.5 million budget deficit coming up in this next budget. So I appreciate this motion because it does put into the conversation the amount of money we're talking about this initiative. It doesn't limit whatever we do later, but it does limit this downtown public safety initiative to what was proposed by the city manager, which was $2.2 million.
Okay, I've got Betty and then Andrea and Chris. Betty?
Well, once more, this is confusing. I don't understand exactly what it's for. I don't mind limiting the money, but it can be reinterpreted to mean we approved spending that much money, and it isn't clear what it's for at this point, and I don't see the urgency of passing that right now. I'd like to know what we're talking about before I vote for it. Thank you.
Andrea?
I'm in support of this, but I just want, it'd be nice if we could have this kind of plan for all the other hot spots in Eugene that aren't being tracked. But I'll just
Chris?
There you go, Mike. See, if you take what she wants and what I want and multiply it, then you get a lot more money.
There you go.
In fact, I actually, to both your point, I saw this as a clarification as much as anything else. Is not really a limit as much as a clarification. I think it is valuable when you're talking about these kind of initiatives to have some sort of a dollar figure to know what ballpark you're in. Not to be limiting, because I agree, there's still many things that need to be done, but for the context of this discussion, to put some parameters on it, I think was reasonable. So I was okay with that. Not to limit our larger discussion about public safety, but to frame this particular one.
Alan?
So to play off of what Andrea said, I think there are other very pressing public safety needs in the city, including property crime, especially in my ward around the university neighborhoods. Property crime is a huge problem. I hear about that 10 times more than I hear about downtown public safety issues. And so I'm more concerned about solving that problem than I am about downtown safety. So this is the initiative du jour, and this is what's in front of us. I'm not willing to go too much further than where we're at in terms of working on this without fixing those other problems and the other hot spots that are around the city that have huge problems. Downtown's not the be-all and end-all for public safety problems in the city of Eugene. I mean, there are. We heard a lot of folks in the it's the squeaky wheel issue, I think, but it's not the one issue that I am concerned with, or the people in my part of town are concerned with. We heard a lot in the Eugene Counts about folks feeling safe in their neighborhoods and being able to walk around at night and having their houses feel like they're safe from property crime or their cars getting stolen or whatnot. And so those issues, I think, rise to the top for me, and they need to be addressed as well.
Okay, I think we're ready to vote on this one. All those in favor, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in opposition. 2
No, I'll vote
passes.
for it.
Oh, you're going to vote for it. 7 in favor and 1 in opposition. Okay. 7 in favor and 1 in opposition. Now we're ready for motion 2. And this is all...
It's already on the table.
Already on the table. So this is to include for the proposed downtown Lane Community College development at 10th and Charlottetown, $8 million as part of the proposed urban renewal plan amendment, a portion of which can facilitate a public plaza or open space area at that site and potentially a downtown public safety station.
And again, that's for clarification. It's a part of the project description we've been talking about all along.
Puts that public plaza or open space front and center, right? Yes. George and then George.
Yeah, I just got a question. How does LCC feel about a public safety substation in there, in the campus? I mean, I know that's a problem for, I would imagine that they may not be thrilled with that idea.
I think partly what we've heard from Mary is, one, she's open to it. 2, what she has said is she wants to have a strong LCC presence there, and so public safety station, she's open to it, but would not want that to be the dominant theme or what people think of when they see that building. So that's a design element.
Okay.
She's open to all of these, the plaza, the public safety station.
Thank you.
Just for clarification, when you bring back the 3 comparisons, I know this motion specifically addressed $8 million as part of the proposed urban renewal plan amendment. Will that also be used in the 3 comparisons?
Yes, yes, when we talk about it, yes.
Thank you.
And I guess I just want to clarify that if it moves forward, that we're going to have $8 million as part of the proposed urban renewal plan, it doesn't mean that one has to use all 8. It's up to. So in our best world, that would not be necessary. Okay. Yes.
So I was going to ask the same question that George asked. So would you accept as a friendly that says, as part of the proposed urban renewal plan amendment and the local option levy and general obligation bond
Yes.
options? So it's clear that we're talking about all 3.
Yes.
Okay. And
Sure, can't vote for it, though.
okay. So I think we're ready to vote on this one. All those in favor, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in opposition. 2, it passes. Next motion, I move to include as part of the proposed urban plan amendment an additional $500,000 for improvement to the park blocks to enhance that area for the farmers market.
You may want to have the same language in that,
stick 'em in all.
in potentially the next 2
Just
amendments.
a friendly to
Can we
add.
assume that friendly is in each of these? Because I'd accept that.
Okay.
All right. Any questions or comments about the park blocks? My only, this is sort of tangential, but it does make a difference, is that there's a lot of conversation swimming around now about farmers market, and I hope that we will have that larger discussion before we decide what we're going to be doing in this context. Alan?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, so I won't. But I also like the idea of taking, what is that, Park Street? I like taking that area and turning it into a plaza-type place, which might include structures for rain, and also the other side of what is that, 8th? And turning that into somewhat akin to what we have down at Willamette and Broadway, so that it becomes more of a plaza and can have more of a farmer's market kind of feel that could potentially be used all year round. So, and if $500,000 could go a long way towards getting us there.
Betty?
I'm willing to discuss this later, but right now I can't vote for it. When we get the money, I'm willing to discuss farmers, but we're trying to do too many things at once, and we don't know what money and where it's coming from, and it's all leading toward urban renewal.
Jennifer?
So, Mayor, was your point that while these other discussions are happening, that if in fact the farmer's market ends up going somewhere else and not even needing the park blocks, that we might not use this $500,000?
I think we just want to have a broader discussion with the participants about how this would, what they're thinking of evolving at this point.
Right, I think it's about having a conversation with them to make sure we're meeting their needs as part of this.
Okay, well, I do agree with that conceptually. I do have a little heartburn over the fact that I'm willing to get that the majority of the farmers from the farmers market are not even City of Eugene residents. And so I have a problem with us spending money on them or subsidizing their activities when we aren't willing to do the same for other groups that are in fact Eugene citizens, or even other downtown business owners whose owners are Eugene citizens. I'm not going to go to the mat on that, but I just want you to know that I have a principled objection to this.
Well, I'd just like to say one more time, I think we're putting way too many things together all at once. Of course, everybody adores Saturday Market and the farmers market. It's one of the coolest things about Eugene. It brings probably more people downtown than any other thing, other than maybe the public library. But I'll bet if you went around town and asked people and didn't coach them and said, what in your opinion is the most pressing problem in Eugene? I bet that Saturday Market would probably be last on their list. It works terrific just the way that it is. And not to say it couldn't have some improvements. But to amend an urban renewal plan for $500,000, I mean, it's like, I'm opposed to the urban renewal anyway now, but I mean, this is really kind of a misuse of amending an urban renewal plan. It's a lot of work for $500,000 worth of money. We have left in our spending limit, we have $500,000. So if we got rid of the plan tonight, we'd still have $500,000 to spend on Saturday Market. I think we could come up with 500 grand somewhere else too, so I'll be opposing this one also.
George Foley?
Well, I agree with Jennifer that the majority of the people that actually sell produce at the farmers market are not Eugene residents. However, I'm willing to bet that probably 90 to 95% of the people that buy the produce are. And, I think it's time that we actually took some affirmative action to improve the state of our farmers market. There are a lot more people that are looking to buy locally grown, and I think this is a good way. And if we're going to be working on amending the urban renewal district or a general obligation bond or whatever, we might as well do it all at one time. So I will support this.
I just want to add to that conversation is that one of your council goals is food security, and we are working on a whole scoping process to actually improve our ability to provide for ourselves, so this seems perfect to me. And I'd also like to make the comment, because we've had this comment made several times tonight about too much in this, and what I want to say is I think the strategy that's in place here is that in the past, we've tried to do one piece. We're trying to do three major pieces where you have public safety, social services, and development all moving at the same time, and hopefully lift this downtown in a way we haven't been able to do before. So it is strategic, and it is specifically honed to address those same things simultaneously. It is not a throw it in the basket. It is a carefully put together to make the soup what you want it to be like in the end. Tasty. All right.
Homegrown.
Chris.
Yeah. Set me up to be hard. I agree. While the farmers may not be local, the buyers are, and that is a good point. I went to the farmers market in Walla Walla, and they have invested significant money in pavilions and roofs and structures and everything else, and that's not just with private dollars. That's been with public money. I'm not saying we want to go that far, but I do think setting this up as a parameter once again. We don't have to spend it, but at least, make the support there, I think is worthwhile. It really gets back to the notion of spinning a lot of plates at the same time. And I realize it's a challenge, and it's tough to keep a lot of plates spinning, but that's kind of what people expect of us to do, is to keep a lot of plates spinning all at once. And maybe some plates have maybe a little higher priority and greater significance, but that doesn't mean you let the other ones fall. So in terms of this amount of money as an upper limit, I'm comfortable supporting it.
I like the soup analogy better than spinning plates.
The
Yeah.
soup?
It's because you said it.
No, it's because we have different outcomes.
Yeah.
And farmer's market. Well, plates and food.
No, that's,
We could be spinning bowls.
yeah, right. Betty.
There is nothing better than the farmer's market in downtown or anywhere in the city. And I'm really glad the manager decided to stop charging them for the parking spaces they're allowed to use. But this is all tied together with urban renewal, regardless of what you say. And I don't like having things that are really good tied in with things that are not good at all. The one thing in this whole thing that was not tied to urban renewal, I think, was the charging fees for vacant property, and I was glad to vote for that, and I'll be glad to vote for one more that isn't tied to urban renewal, but that's it.
Okey-doke. We're ready to vote on this one. All those in favor, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In opposition, 1, 2, 3. It passes. Okay. The next one is, I move that if the Veterans Affairs VA pursues Peace Health's Willamette Street site for a new VA clinic, include the VA clinic as part of the proposed urban renewal plan amendment. Any comments about that before we?
With the other.
Right.
With the-
Yeah, with the other.
Friendlies in
Yes,
there.
with the friendlies in there. Right. Okay. Further discussion? All right. All those in favor, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In opposition? 1, 2. Okay. The last one on the page is, I move to pursue grant opportunities for steam conversion and electrical vehicle charging stations.
That's the other one I'll be happy to vote for.
All right. Further discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and none in opposition. It passes, and I think we got her done.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So, the next step, city manager, is?
March 8th is a council meeting in which we will be coming back with all of this various information on the 3 tracks. We will be asking you to make some decisions on the 8th. To help us move forward. Susan talked about that timeline. We'll distribute that also. If you have other questions or information needs, please let us know so we can provide that to you as we move forward.
Betty?
What did I say, March 8th?
Yeah, March 8th.
It was
Yeah,
March
March
8th.
8th,
Will you bring in other possible funding sources to help LCC, other than a levy or bond or urban renewal?
Council has not asked that, so I'm not planning
I'm
on doing
asking
that at the
them.
moment.
So you want to put a motion forward?
Okay, I
then?
move that we ask the city manager to look for other sources of funds, including facility reserve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Mike?
On which pieces and what specifically do you mean?
On LCC.
Just on, which
Yes.
is 1D then? Is that correct?
I don't care what D it was.
Do you have
It's LCC.
Do you have a specific list of places you want them to look, or do you just want them to just look broadly?
I mentioned one, the facility reserve. All the possible places aside from a geo bond or levy.
One of the
Urban
things that we
renewal.
did in
I mean, it could include the urban renewal funds we currently have, but
But part of the information from the work session on January 11th, we included that as part of the total package. We can sort of refresh that and send that back out. So that may be one way of doing that.
well, my motion is to have that available for consideration.
Okay. George Pauling?
I move to amend by striking the words facility reserve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor of the amendment, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In opposition? 1, 2, 3. So the amendment, so it prevails, which is not including the
Facility
reserves.
reserve.
But all other options.
All other options, but not the reserves. All right.
Now we vote on
Vote on the main.
Now we're back to the,
Yeah.
all right.
Motion as amended.
Now, vote on the motion as amended. All those in favor?
Meaningless.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in opposition, 1 in opposition. It passes. Again, I guess I appreciate what everybody went through on this one and remind us that the whole reason we're doing this is to try to have the development, the public safety, and the social services that are going to invigorate and create a healthy downtown for our whole community. So keep working on this till we get
Madam
there.
Mayor, before we
Yes.
go, I'm going to be in Portland all day Wednesday, and I won't be able to take part in the items from council and mayor. There is one thing I would just like to bring up, if I may, at this time.
Sure.
The person that I appointed to the Sustainability Commission, Brian Erickson, has decided to step down based on his job and his family obligations and everything else. So I worked with Kevin Finney based on the names that we had. Since Brian was the person that I appointed, I went ahead and made another appointment to take his place, and that is Kathy Jaworski. And the last word that I got from Brian is that she was, I think, out of town, but she had expressed interest that she would be taking that, and I don't know where we are on that. I haven't heard back from him, but I believe that Kathy will be taking Brian's place on the Sustainability Commission.
I'm glad you brought this up, George, because we do have time for committee reports and items of interest. And so,
We gotta get
you don't even have to do it, you know. You just have the opportunity. So, anybody ready to go on that one?
No.
You want to wait until Wednesday, everybody, because it was scheduled that way?
You caught us by surprise.
All right, well, it could be a very short exercise. Okay, we'll visit it on Wednesday. All right, thanks, everybody.